Okay, so this is round 5 of the 30th Singapore Open. My opponent is Siach, one of the better players in Singapore. So let's go with a perpendicular opening. And just go with the usual tiger rose bill. So he's played Stephenson. So let's try to go with the Komov variation. So he's played a special opening over here, cut into the top. This opening is so cut into the center as well. Flip two discs in one direction and just try to regroup the disc afterwards. So he's jumped in. We'll take one disc with a diagonal cut to the top at D1. Just trying to regroup the disc while retaining moves. So black has played into F2. We'll just go ahead and usually it might be tempting to actually form a pair by playing G1, but we'll go with B3 this time to try to keep the outside of the board and see whether it's possible to play this out. So black has done a one disc cut by the side. So right now white is just basically trying to occupy the left while black is trying to occupy to the right. Both sides trying to pull each other over to their ends. We'll jump in to the center. That would be an option to D6. Another option of just maintaining to the left side would be C7. So comparing both moves, I actually slightly prefer D6 for the fact that it's still within the center 16, and at the same time, if black would have just cut across to B5 in response, I would still have B4 move. Yeah. So black has actually jumped into B5. So white could potentially follow up with just a cross back to B4. So black has jumped into C4. Um, Over here, I'll just continue to the top left and just trying to maintain white's shape to the top left. So an option would be to actually just take a6, making a diagonal cut across. So let's go with that. So black has captured d7, basically regrouping and waiting white to break out. So obviously b6 would be quite a nice move for white right now if I could just access it, but right now I don't really have access to b6, and breaking out to the right seems to poison actually myself if black were to just jump into e1. So if I were to play anything like g3 or g4, black would be able to capture a nice quiet move to feed the unbalanced edge. So instead of doing that, we want to just keep to my side of the board and just continue playing with c7 with anticipation of maybe black going into b6 and white regrouping at a5 and black following down to c8. Of course, another option would be black jumping into b6, and I could go to e8 as a crossback instead, and black would probably jump in for a quiet move to a4, and I could just play a5 and feed that unbalanced edge across. After feeding that unbalanced edge across, all the moves to the top would be poison for black, so that is an option as well. So black has elected to actually just jump straight in to try for a poison move or feeding up the edge. So two options. One would be to just capture the edge simply with a4, and the second option would be to feed the edge to b6. So a potential good move in the future for black to actually gain tempo would be probably f1, because I wouldn't be able to access e1 after f1. So if I were to consider playing a4 followed with a response to b6 and me going into maybe e8, black wouldn't have that access. But if I were to feed the edge over here, black could potentially have the access. So let's go with guarding the edge first. So as expected, black has essentially jumped in, so we'll go with e8 in response. So black has actually gone for the top e1, which almost seems as if he is taunting me to actually take f1, or daring me to actually take f1, because if I take f1, it basically poisons all the moves below. I don't really gain tempo per se. So in fact, it might be wise for me to just trade tempos, instead giving him one tempo and me going to the tail end of it. And if he were to take c1 with a follow-up tempo, I could go over here to f7. But he would have one more tempo to actually c2. And I would then have to rotate across to maybe g6 potentially. So it really is a trade-off right now. If I were to go into f1 right now, and he goes to feed c1, b1, and c2 sequence, I would then have to create an access to actually obtain either move to g1 or b7. And at the same time, I capture the edge to the top and poison all the moves to the right. So keeping that in mind, I think rotating to the in an anti-clockwise manner seems to be more advantageous for me, or at least probably the best option I have right now. So I'll go along with e7. So another option that I do realize now is that instead of just going for the simple e7, I could jump into e1 and just feed that top unbalanced edge, which is balanceable, and grab c2, basically to cover that tempo up. And if he doesn't take it, I'll take the top edge, even though it poisons all the moves to the right. I do have one additional tempo because I have this particular disc over here. So let's go ahead and just jump in for the quiet move, flipping one disc in one direction, and the disc that I flipped is surrounded by the existing disc on the board. So he's actually grabbed that unbalanced edge. So we'll just go into c2, and potentially he will jump into b1 to actually take that tempo off, and then I could jump into e7 with a follow-up move to g6 with consecutive tempo. So instead of going for the obvious b1, he's choosing to retain that as a spare move for himself, which is not a bad move to actually consider, considering the top left is actually a 5 disc area, which only he can access to. So we'll jump right in for the easy quiet move to f7 over here, flipping two discs one direction, and two discs are surrounded by all the existing discs on the board. So right now he's jumped in, which is actually quite a good maneuver to try to get more tempo into the center of the bottom left region. So over here, instead of just jumping straight in for the corner, I want to, if I were to take the corner and black goes in here, and I make a move here, black would actually essentially have some form of control to the right. Instead of doing that, I want to prevent his spare move to b1, at the same time rotating more towards the right and developing all the right regions to actually try to enhance the value of the corner before I actually take the corner. So I'll go ahead to play g6 to try to sort of bargain for actually a better value for this corner. Try to develop the bottom right. So black has chosen to jump into the edge at h6. So obviously the follow-up would be to just connect the disc to the right. But a few considerations here for either to play g3, 4, or 5. So the weakness of g5 is that we convert this particular disc at f6, which is a box corner disc, into white, and it doesn't seem very possible for it to be converted back to black. The reason why this box corner disc is important is that you need access to either x square or basically the x squares in the each of the regions. Usually in the end game for diagonal control purposes. And at the same time, he still does retain that access across to b1. However, capturing this mini diagonal would actually make it slightly easier to avoid being swindled, assuming he plays f8 in the future. So let's just go ahead with the direct contact move at g5. So let's jump into g4, being a centralizing move. There is a potential chance that he plays a diagonal control. Okay, he decided to go for a clean vertical cut. So I'll just jump into h5 and centralize. So the disc to g5 seems to be very important in terms of trying to cross back into the center. Over here, it's likely that he will respond to h3. Forcing me to enter potentially g2. for parity. So let's go ahead with G2 for parity. So in order to create more moves to the right, don't have much of a choice here. I have to jump into D8. Now it feels like I'm pretty much being forced into a move right now. So over here I'll have to go for the diagonal control at this point in time. Parity does not seem to be on my side. So just jump in for parity. Grab the corner. Basically, I've run out of moves over here, so I don't have much of a choice. It looks like it's a parity win for black. Good game by siach.